Guys, welcome to another video here on the European Gaming League channel. Thank you very much to everybody who's been watching, subscribing, liking the videos, commenting as well. Keep it going, guys. We've really had a good amount of growth in the past few weeks with all this content we'll be pushing out. So thank you very much to everyone who's been keeping an eye on all my videos. But anyway, moving into today's topics, of course, Rostermania is the main one. If anything, we've seen a lot of movement last night, and specifically just maybe two players moving over towards 100 Thieves in the end. But I feel as if this is going to be the dominoes starting to fall now. These players are starting to move into place, and this should now start the chain reaction of players starting to move. I think it's a fantastic move by 100 Thieves to bring in Slasher and Enable, but I think it's part of a bigger picture in the whole of Rostermania. Now, let's discuss 100 Thieves and discuss this pickup. I've got all my information to the side again. I don't have it all locked up in here, unfortunately, but for me, I think it's a very good pickup in Slasher. Of course, Enable makes sense too. Slasher, first and foremost, probably the best AR on World War II last year. It makes perfect sense to have him in this team. Why wouldn't you want Slasher in your team? Even if you got Octane, it's probably going to be a 2AR meta, isn't it, really? I mean, let's be honest, nobody really actually knows what it's going to be like, but I don't think it's a bad thing to have them both on that team. They both are fantastic ARs. You would argue the best two ARs from World War II are in the same team. On top of that, you've got Pharaoh's prowess in S&D, you've got Enable's in-game leadership, and you have Kenny on your team. Okay, so basically, they have two of the best three players, two of the top two players from last year in Slasher and Kenny, who for me were probably number one and number two, with Gunless number three. And then on top of that, as I said, you've got Pharaoh's S&D prowess and how good he can be at that. You got Enable coming in as an in-game leader, and then you probably got the second best AR from what it just makes perfect sense. I'm rambling about them, but it's just bewildering that they've been allowed to put this team of superstars together. If these guys can perform how they did on World War II as a whole, then this roster is very dangerous and will cause problems for a lot of people. I probably feel a little bit more worried about Enable than I do about anybody else on this team. Of course, we've seen him have some bad performances last year when he got on this TK roster, but towards the end, he did start picking it up. If he can keep it at that sort of level throughout the year with this 100 Thieves squad, then he'll be fine. He will have no problems remaining on this team, of course, but I feel as if he could potentially be scapegoated if things started going wrong. He's easily, on paper, probably the weakest player in this team from a pure talent standpoint, so unfortunately for him, his time could be short if he doesn't play how he did towards the end of last season. But as I said, he does bring other things to the team that hopefully they take into consideration. But slightly worried for Enable if anything starts going wrong. But I don't think it really will, to be honest with you. You look at the core of this roster, it's a very strong squad. What more is this to say? As I said, Kenny, Octane, and Slasher on the same team. They're backed up by two very efficient players in Pharaoh and Enable, of course, as well. I think they'll just be fine. I think it's a very scary roster for everybody else looking at now and thinking, God damn, I mean, there's some championships from last year under the belt in this roster. I'm going to move on to the fourth player out of TK that hasn't made this roster, and that is Accuracy. They've chose Slasher over Accuracy, which it makes sense for me, but I think realistically they may well have brought Accuracy in if they couldn't have got Slasher. That would have made more sense. I probably would have seen 100 Thieves maybe moving away from Enable and picking up somebody else, but Enable obviously being that third player from Stage 2 playoffs, meaning that they automatically get a pooled play spot as well. I think it makes sense for 100 Thieves to go with him. Accuracy, though, I think he was a huge part of this TK roster and why they had so many championships last year, especially towards the beginning. I think realistically, he's going to probably have a lot to prove, not just for himself, but to people who haven't stayed with him, to the fans who are saying, well, why hasn't he been picked up? He's got a lot to prove next year, and I think anybody that does actually end up teaming with Accuracy will have success. I think we'll see him be just again at the top once again, I should say, throughout the whole year. I wouldn't be surprised anyway if he puts up big numbers next year again. But I said, I think this whole roster move is the outline of a bigger picture. For me, I thought Karma would end up on this 100 Thieves lineup. I really do think he was definitely their main target. He hasn't made it over, whether that be anything to do with him maybe agreeing to join the team and not happening and flipping in the end. That seems to be a bit of evidence on that, because Nadeshot wasn't happy about something. And players and fans are really starting to presume that that's what it was. For me, this now means I think he stays on Optic. I really do. I think Optic don't need to go out and spend the big bucks. If they can just convince him to stay and have another stab at it, then they don't need to go out and drop an insane amount of money to try and pick up players, although they do have it. You're already using something you have. So they're already using the resources of Karma, maybe moving over to their 5th. It really wouldn't surprise me. So what this new Optic roster is going to be: Krim, Scump, Dashi, TJ, and Karma. Another very, very scary squad for people to look at. Of course, we know that Dashi's put up the big numbers last year. Let's see if he can put himself in a bigger team and continue that trend. I think he will, let's be honest. I think Karma coming back into this team is what it needed. Him and Seth need to make sure they get things locked down, because obviously that was one of the big issues in that team, that those guys maybe not getting along in game, out of game, whatever. They need to make sure they fix that, and I don't think for a second that Karma would have went back if he doesn't think it's fixable. So for me, I wouldn't be surprised if Karma is moving over towards Optic. Of course, these are just rumors right this second, but I mean, what were his other options? Moving over to like an LG rich guy hybrid team? I don't know. I think they may actually have themselves sorted. But for me, I think Karma stays on Optic now. I wouldn't be surprised if that is going to be the case. What we're moving on to next. Okay, so let's talk about LG and Gunless. Of course, we know that Formal and Gunless have wanted to team together for some time. Now, this is the opportune moment. Karma is out the picture. Slash is out the picture. The whole of TK are out of the picture, which for me, I think on a realistic level, it sort of just leaves LG and E United to sort of mix it up a little bit. It wouldn't surprise me to see that LG roster being the LG roster from last year, but just with Gunless in there as well. Who else they're going to pick up? We don't really know what Clayster and E United are doing right now. We don't know if they're sticking. We don't know if they're splitting. If they are they going to end up with half of LG? We know they've got big buyouts in their contracts, especially John. I think realistically, it wouldn't surprise me to see LG stick together and just bring Gunless in if they can, of course. We do know that Rise may well still be holding his contract, so that's going to be a big issue for him to get out of. But LG do have some money, or, you know, this rich guy could just go out and buy... Whoever this rich guy is, by the way, haven't got a clue. He seems to be just this guy that's been generated from the middle of nowhere that suddenly just has money and is buying players out left, right, and centre. But we'll see, but I think realistically that would be a good 5 if those guys could stick together. We've seen them have some pretty decent performances. Then putting Gunless into the equation as well is definitely going to help things. A guy I actually feel sorry for is Looney. Looney seems to be, well, as far as I'm concerned, it seems as if he's been left in the lurch a little bit and he doesn't necessarily have anything sorted for next year. As of right now, I think he sort of goes in that pool of free agents with top quality in there, with accuracy in there. Well, technically Jared, who is still looking for a team as well, but is under Splice, so he's trying to bring people into Splice, of course. That sort of pool of players will end up sort of amalgamating together, I'd imagine, and forming a decent enough roster, I would say. But I think that depends, again, on what LG eventually do. I wouldn't be surprised if they stick and bring Gunless in, or what E United do. Nobody seems to, as said, know what is going on. Right now, the talk is fairly quiet. It doesn't seem as if there's much information going on, because I think Clayster, he's on vacation right now, or he's at a festival, or do whatever. So it's difficult for them to start sorting things out as of yet, as far as I'm aware. But I think realistically, Jerd would be a very, very hot property in terms of just sliding into a 4 or sliding in with another bunch of lads on a team. But I think, as far as I'm concerned, I've had whispers of his buyout being super high, like astronomically high, like in and around the same sort of numbers that you would expect, like John, etc. Which is okay, fair enough. Spice want to keep a hold of their assets, but Jerd for that money is probably not going to be bought out. But that's probably what they want. They probably want to keep a hold of him so they can build a team around him. It makes sense for me. For me, I think Jerd will end up with accuracy. I think those two will end up teaming together. That's a good starting basis for a very, very strong squad, and then they can potentially poach people from there. Whether it be Clayster, people like that from a United, Clayster and accuracy on the same team wouldn't be a problem for me. I think, you know, if Clayster wants to get on a team that can win tournaments again, accuracy had a history of that. Okay, Jerd recently not had too much history of it, but we know how good of a player he actually is. So for me, I don't think there's too many question marks around Jerd. And then from there, there's plenty of people they could pick up. But I think we're going to see some strange rosters possibly put together. But as said, it really wouldn't surprise me to see that LG lineup stick and then move Gunless in together. But I could be completely wrong. But for me, it would make sense. Quickly going to move over to Europe before I close this one out. So we've all seen the rumors on Reddit. I think CEOs of organizations need to be very, very careful of who they're following, because it's making things very, very obvious. Reciprocity, here we go again. Reciprocity, I think I've got it. They said there's an announcement coming on the 1st. Wuskins has also said there's an announcement coming on the 1st. So, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket science to put 2 and 2 together. What's happening there? It does seem as if that now, what you presume is the Unilad team to be the presumed new Reciprocity team. Now, who's going to be in their roster seems to be the question, but then the CEO sort of gave it away when he followed them all at the same time. So it does seem as if it's going to be Zed, Wuskins, and Shawnee, joined by Tommy, which was expected. I mentioned that in my last video. It does seem as if there was a bit of love on Twitter between Wuskins and Tommy. There was profile pictures changed and everything, so it was very obvious what was going on, unless it was some crazy bait, but I'd be very shocked at this point. And then on top of that, it does seem as if the Australian Dens may well be moving over based off the rumours we've seen on Reddit and what went on Twitter. I was so close. I did think Mad Cat's team would probably go for him, but it sounds like they're being pipped to the post by Reciprocity. So now that for me is a very, very, very good roster. It is a nasty roster. For me, I was quite worried about this ex-Unilad, now new Reciprocity, presumably. I was quite worried about them when Alex left, because for me, okay, the other 3 guys on this team are very, very good, but then they're having to search for 2 players, considering we moved over to 5v5, and I know that 4 of them were potentially tied up in Mad Cat's team, or Mad Cat's rumor team of him, Josh, Dave, and now Alex, of course. But I think if anything, Unilad have probably come out the other side, or ex-Unilad, I should say. I need to stop calling them Unilad, but that's how everybody knows them, Tony. Just continue. I think they've actually come out looking better. I think, yes, okay, Alex had a fantastic year, but bringing in Dens and Tommy, if that is what's happening, that is a strangely strong roster. You look at it, it's a bit of an amalgamation. I didn't expect Tommy to maybe move into there. I honestly thought that he would end up going to Mad Cat's team, but Tommy coming into this team now, they have to give him the reins, as said. I mentioned that potentially in my last video, but then Den's coming into it. It didn't shock me that Europe seems to be the option for him. It makes a little bit more sense in America. I presume it will be very, very difficult for them all to get over there. Well, it might not be, you know, visas aside. It's a good move for him. It makes sense. You know, he's not stepping into a top 4 team or anything like that, but this United team can definitely be a strong contender next year. For me, at this moment in time, easily the best rumored roster outside of Red Reserve coming out of Europe, I would say. Red Reserve, for me, still take that title at this moment in time, but we've got the game to come out soon. It's a long time till Vegas before we make our decisions on how good these teams are. That finally does lead me to Mad Cat's team. It seems as if they're being left in the lurch a little bit, and I don't think Jade would go in to join that team anyway after the history that he had in Splice last year with Mad Cat and Josh. I just don't think that team is going to work out, and of course we know his buyout is, or we presume his buyout's pretty high, so I don't see that happening. Hopefully they end up picking up some sort of youngster from Europe, although that pool of players isn't very big right now. I feel as if they may be sort of clutching at straws and try and go for somebody who has been in and around the scene for a while. We'll see what happens on that front. But I mean, as far as I'm aware, that's everything that I've got to talk about so far. It's going to be a crazy next week or so, I would say, and I won't be surprised if we see things start to move for everybody else and announcements start to come. The first official announcement we know outside of the 100 Thieves zone that happened last night is on the 1st of October. Looking for that Reciprocity lineup to be confirmed, but that one is a very, very strong rumor at this point. But other than that, let's see what happens. I'm really interested to see, I said, where LG and E United, how all those like 10 to 15 players that are in this little bowl of very, very good talent, but we don't know which way they're going. I'm interested to see which way that one eventually does lie. And we will find that out very, very shortly. I'd imagine we're just about, is it 2 weeks today until Black Ops 4? I think it is, you know. Okay, no, 2 weeks tomorrow. 2 weeks tomorrow until Black Ops 4 now, so I'm very, very excited for that. But 2 weeks for teams to start figuring things out. Of course, they don't need to figure it out right before the game comes out, but at this moment in time, I think players will want the most practice they can get as a team on that game when it does come out. Of course, with the format changed to 5v5, There's a lot to learn for everybody. Guys, please leave a like on the video. Comment as well on what you think is going to happen, because really, I could be clutching at straws here. I don't know for certain on a lot of these things what exactly is going to happen. So comment on what you think may actually happen. Please subscribe to the channel as well. We've got plenty more coming. We're trying to put out at least 5 videos a week, so plenty of content for you guys to digest. But that's going to be it for now. We'll see you on the next video.